And setting up.
We're live.
Mr. Williams. We have Mrs. Hall joining us today in Mrs. DeGraw's place as she was called away to do her civic jury duty. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. I want to welcome all of you to our meeting. Thanks for being here. And Mr. Williams will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we open for a motion to approve the agenda,
Madam Chair, I so move.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mrs. Hall, did we have any public comment? No. Before we open for a motion to approve the consent agenda, Madam Chair, we so move. Is there a second? Sorry, writing down to keep track of her sister. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. First action item on the list, we have purchase spending surplus approvals.
Yes, we do. I'm sure we do have one that I would like to bring up. So back in July, if everybody can remember back to July, I did bring to the board with Miss Hicks as our new bus supervisor, that we want to start that process of looking at buying a new route bus. And that process does take up to about a year. And I really appreciate all the work that Nyla has put in to this. And I'll probably let her speak a little bit on her experience here in just a second. But if you remember, we've shared with you the bus depreciation model. This has all of the buses that we have in our fleet. As the buses are newer, within 8 to 10 years, we do get some reimbursement back on a diminishing scale towards the purchase of all of these buses. And so we did put in 2 quotes, and you can see right away it's going to jump out to you at very high amounts actually compared to if you look on my first year as superintendent in 19. This was actually purchased previously to me, but the first one that I purchased as superintendent was $86,000. So just with inflation and COVID and the cost of everything, buses are around $145,000 for them to be built. And so these are the 2 bids that did come in. They came through Sourcewell, which is already put together by Public Works for the bidding process. And as Nyla was visiting with me about it, her recommendation would be to buy from the Western Mountain Bus Sales, and it would be a Thomas bus, which is different than what we've done in years past. I know she's done a lot of research on it, called probably no less than 10 different bus supervisors, maybe about 8 on that.
Well, yeah, there's 8.
There were 8 of them.
Right.
So she called 8 different bus supervisors, just asked about different types. There's pros and cons with every single, but Nyla, do you want to speak a little bit on why you're wanting to move to a Thomas bus? I don't have a picture of the actual bus, but you see a lot of the other schools have them. They look a little bit more like a car than a truck.
Square.
Yeah, they're still square, but
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. No, they have a front end. Yeah, they're not flat nosed. They just have a little bit of different shape, but tell us a little bit about what your experience was
Okay.
looking at that.
Well, in the past, we've been buying internationals for years. And I heard some positive things about Thomas buses, so I had the international just salesman to work me up a bid for an international bus. And then I thought, well, I'm going to compare that. So I had Thomas work me up a bid with a bus with all the same specs as the international bus that came. While he was working that up, I went to 8 different school districts from South Fremont to Snake River to see what they drove and what they liked better for their buses and what worked best for them. Not one of those districts wanted an international bus. not one of them. And 5 5 out of 8 of them just said go Thomas. And the Thomas bid came in less. Thomas comes out of Nampa. And so I asked the dealer if we have problems, we need to run it clear back to Nampa for works. And he said, no, he says, we can get it fixed right in Idaho Falls, so we don't have to, no extra. And, all of the people that I talked to said that, the salesman is very easy to work with too and very accommodating, and they all love him. And so, and then when the bids came back and with the same specs as the International Bus, and it came back that much less. And with all this different school districts I talked to, I would just recommend getting a Thomas bus and giving it a try. I also opted for a extra safety feature. They have something called wig-wag headlights that we haven't had in the past. And this is like when you activate your overhead lights, the ones that flash when to alert traffic, your headlights also flash, which tracks tension more. And the Madison supervisor said that he feels like that has cut back on their stop arm violations quite a bit. And that was at no extra cost to us at all. So I said, let's throw them on there.
So with the funding for that, would come, oh, go ahead.
Did they mention, or did you see any other features that you liked better than the International? Was it just those things that you mentioned, or were there a lot of other things?
You know, I have not seen the bus. I just talked to the other supervisors, what is working for them.
What they liked?
There's so many features to choose, there's so many specs that you can choose. These now are coming with actual air conditioning for our drivers, which just is automatic now, they say with the buses now, so that's something extra for that. But, you know, features, we have some of the things we do have on it, we do now have a heated seat for the driver, which I'm really pro.
And that was not needing to say anything about this morning and tomorrow's, so, okay.
No, we only have, I think, 2 buses right now that do have those, and those are very, very good. They have,
Do they hold the same amount of children?
they do, they all, what we have right now, 77, I think this bus said it had like 75, 76, something like that. But you know, that's a very crowded bus, that's 3 to a seat, and you can't put that many high school kids in a seat, but that's what we've been already getting for years.
Are they bench seats? They're not individual seats?
They're bench seats.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just bench seats for our route buses.
Okay.
So that would come out of plant facility, but just to be clear, with our special meeting and the big purchase that we're bringing out of plant facility, this would be for the 25-26 budget. So for next year, and I think I explained that in here. In there, so the plant facility fund is projected to have a balance of 174,000 at the end of this fiscal year. And that is with the bigger projects, with the track and the football field that we discussed. For the upcoming fiscal year, we will be receiving $300,000 in revenue for that. So that balance will jump back up to 474. And then we would subtract the 142 from that. So, and that won't come out of that until next year when the bus arrives. So we don't have to pay them anything with the PO, the board. It's here where we have to purchase it when it comes.
Don't we get reimbursed some?
We will get reimbursed some, but a lot of times I don't look at the reimbursement as a way to, like, we're just looking at the total cost, what's in the budget. But if I come back up here to the depreciation, this is what we would get each year on the depreciation. So for the 24-25, they will send us 49,000. We take that and put that right into plant facility, just so it pads that as well. So you're right. One way you could look at that, if I see what you're saying, that would be for the 25-26 school year. We're scheduled to have 39,000 come back. You could look at that and say, this bus really isn't 142, it's 142 minus 39. And so that's one way you can look at it, but I'm not presenting it that way. That is a good point. it makes you feel better about spending $142,000 on a.
Makes me feel a little better.
Well,
Especially when I first came here, we were paying like 90 and 95.
Yeah. I look at that, I'm like, man, maybe we should have bought 3 buses, but if I would have come in, like, said, hey, let's get 3 school buses this year.
Yeah,
Just, it's hard, I'm sure anybody that's in the trucking industry, and things like that, guys, would probably like, those things are so expensive, so. I don't have anything else, Nyla, did you have anything else you wanted to share, or is there any other questions that you guys have for us before?
No, I think that's all I have.
Okay, I'll turn back over to.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the bid from Western Mountain Bus Sales to purchase a new route bus.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We need to certify an emergency closure, so a delay anyway.
So we had the one delayed start on January 20th, and that would just be the only one that needs to be certified. I know, there's quite a few people out there that were pushing for a cold day this morning. I do want people to know that, I know I joked around in my very first snow day closure song that some people think I'm a monster that kills the dream of a snow day. It's kind of true. It's kind of true, but it's also with safety in mind. And so, with the temperatures I checked, it just wasn't, it felt cold. We don't go off of purely wind chill. And the things that were in the news were all wind chill warnings. But I also get second opinions at time. I reached out this morning, so Nyla, thank you for being willing to also be part of that decision, and also our maintenance director, Andy Miller. Like, so it's not just me that's looking at it, but we're in the business of having kids at school, and we're gonna try to have kids at school. And so, we're gonna give these kids a chance to tell their grandkids that they had to come to school in minus 25-degree wind chill, even though the air temperature was still only -5. So we're okay. Yeah, so. Yeah, some people never do, and so we do want to keep it in safety. This last week, we did have a few buses that had some troubles, but to my knowledge, they weren't cold related. It was made like mechanic wise, maybe brought on a little bit. But we're watching that very carefully, and we have a bus that's ready to go out as soon as that one's happening. So we're in a really good spot to keep it safe with the colder temperatures.
you're gonna run it till it goes.
Which one?
When you said it was ready to,
Well, I
Not
don't know,
ready to go, he meant,
like it's ready
if
to
there's
go.
an issue,
oh,
there's a bus ready to
I
go
don't know,
out.
they probably do they start the extra bus just in case, or? is
We
it-
keep one inside the shop bay, so it's warm, ready, so you can just, there's probably, and plus,
Yeah.
if there's another one out in the yard, they'll have it running. If there's more than one that goes down, we are ready.
Sounds good.
So we'll check and make sure, so.
Super. Well, the chair will entertain a motion to certify the emergency closure of school for January 20th, 2025.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're on our second reading of the 8,000 series.
And so where we've had these presented for several months and also open for public comment. And I apologize, Madam Chair, I didn't get the action item written up there, but unless there's any specific changes that need to be made, what we will do is take any of those that need a specific change and push it off to next month. And if there's nothing else, like we can just go through and look at that. I know that you came in yesterday and we were looking over some of those.
Mrs. DeGraw I was worried she would get called in for jury duty, so she was able to answer a lot of my questions yesterday, and we spent a couple hours, but it was good conversation, so I don't think I have anything else.
So as you were talking with her, did you determine that there's so many things in here that you do yearly? And that you,
We made a list.
Did you
We're
make a
making a
list?
list to keep the superintendent on line with all of these
okay,
different
because I thought, how can we possibly get all of this done with everything
Yes.
else, but,
Um,
here's how we have to look at it. We need to strive towards doing the best that we can with it.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I think even the biggest school districts that have a board clerk that only does board clerk and a superintendent who has two or three assistants, you know, they're able, and then also their boards meet twice or three times a month, actually, to go over all of those. I think we're doing our due diligence by going through, examining them. I think we did identify a few things that we could say, let's be more clear on how we do this, but it wasn't because we didn't want to, it's just learning our role and trying to do the very best we can.
yeah, this one, it was funny.
Which one is that? I'll pull it up as we're talking, 300P.
Well, it just talks about the role of the assistant superintendent. I said, awesome, when did they show up?
I know it's that.
Right? But when one of our maintenance guys walked by, I was able to just grab him and say, hey, one of the things in here, it talks about, do you know the location of all the utility shutoffs? Can you shut off the water to any building if you had to? Can you shut off the power? And he knew, so.
Yeah.
That was good, but
This is what they do. And I was wondering, it says never, district employees will never transport in personal vehicle. Do that?
For students,
too?
we teach that to all of them, like
Okay.
on school time. And I know in a small community, there's a lot of overlap. There's an overlap between, you know, if it's a family member, cousin, niece, nephew. You also have, you know, ecclesiastical leaders, different things like that. But we tell them during school trips on school time, you will not put them in your personal car.
Okay. See, all these things
Yeah.
are being done. That's
And
what
so when we have a couple classes that might take a local field trip, they take the school Suburban or a school bus, like it's one or the other.
Okay. And then, if you're a district employee, if you're ever gonna drive the district car and you have a ticket in your own car, you have to report that to the district.
That's what it says. I haven't got a ticket. I got pulled over the other day.
you sweet talked your way out.
Talk your way out of it.
No, I didn't. I'm just good. I'll take my punishment. And
Well, if you
I
don't
got a
got a
warning.
ticket, it says you have to report that to the district. If you drive a district car and you get a ticket, especially with them, yeah, you do, but if you're driving your own person,
on your personal car.
just keep that in mind when you're
Okay.
speeding around.
Can you pull up 8605?
Yeah. So let's look at 8605, retention of district records. Okay, what is your,
I was not aware. It's on 8605-2. Top of the page. Right there. Employees and board members are to retain text messages and other electronic communications related to district business for 1 year.
We're supposed to send them to Carrie.
Are y'all keeping your text messages?
for district business?
Right.
Right. She just said send them to her, that's right. Just make a copy and send it. And then it says you have to have an emergency evacuation drill within the first 6 weeks of each semester. We do that.
Yes.
We do. I mean, when you put specifics in these things, it finds you.
Yes, and there's so many different
So many.
specifics.
I'm glad you made a list.
Yeah, Carrie has it, just the different things that are supposed to be done annually and follow the rules.
Yeah. And so then those are some of the things I worry about, but if they're taken care of, that's good. And then, this committee membership for District Nutrition Committee as a board member on it. I don't think there's a
Yeah.
board member.
That's federally mandated.
Who's the board member?
Didn't you guys say it was Nedra?
I thought we did.
I missed the
I'm
last
pretty
meeting
sure I
then.
voted on that.
Well, they had a meeting.
We
without me
haven't-
then.
We're in the
Don't
process.
miss one.
We're in the process of having that reviewed and we haven't assigned anybody.
Oh, all right.
That'll be whatever. I guess you guys
Whoever's
missed,
gone.
you guys missed your chance to be board chair last month, huh? So whoever Janice assigned.
Uh, Okay, then
Any other comments or questions about those policies?
You know, it's interesting though, because you get the different things from the different federal things, just to speak on Nedra's point about having a board member, but when you go to the ISBA trainings, that their guidelines are not to have a board member on a
Mhm.
committee.
Stay in your lane.
Because, partly because if you're there at the committee, you're not acting as a board member because you're only there as an individual.
I agree.
And so, but that's just kind of the disconnect between
Yeah.
when you get the
Yeah.
different laws written by different groups and they throw different things in, they don't always jive.
So take that out.
I don't know if we can because because it is a federally mandated
I see.
I wrote it down to find out.
on that one.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Any you want to hold out?
Well, I've got things, but I think. we've
And
taken
these will be
care of them.
stuff that we can always review later or change if there's something that comes up.
I remember reviewing these not that long. A year ago, I guess.
And so she did have the 8,000 series. And then also the 2420,
Title one.
the Title One.
Okay, well, the floor will be open for a motion to approve these 8,000 series listed policies and 2420. I guess as they are.
Sure, so moved.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. So we're gonna excuse Mr. Burton Shaw to another meeting. It's popular today.
Say that.
Thank you. All right, we're ready for our superintendent report.
So if it's okay on the superintendent part, I would just like to really just talk about 5.2 and 5.3.
Okay.
If that's all right. Moving forward, just wanted to update in that this was met as in our special meeting last week. So with the RFQ process, school district's been talking about the football field in this process probably for about a year and a half. I think if I go back on every single board meeting, you'll be able to see that it's been a discussion, if not every, at least quarterly for sure for the last little bit. And so with that, the Track Doctor is the company that was selected and also approved by the board in the special meeting to do the track and the turf project. We did have a rendering. I know this rendering's on here, but I have a different rendering that I wanted to show, and I think the board members should have sent this with Mr. Burtonshaw as well. Pass those down. Yes.
Super.
And so this is one, it's not final, it does have a sponsor logo on it, we're still waiting to hear back from the sponsor on the logo. I think there's always gonna be an opinion about the color of it. But I know that from like the students and the kids are really excited about the potential of the light blue turf on it. Again, we've had some people ask, I want to, in open meeting, clarify that we had to reach out to Boise State to get permission. When we called them on the initial, and the reason why Boise State, they have the trademark on any turf colored field, not just blue. So any color other than green, you have to get trademark permission. And we asked the question straight out, do ducks and geese really fly down and land on your field and die, thinking that it's water? And he said, no, that's a myth. And so they have the Boise River and other things right around it. And if people remember, we have seagulls that landed on the green one anyway, and they didn't die. And so I don't think we're gonna have more come just because it's blue, that, there'll still be birds that land on it just like they did before. But right when the meeting started, Mr. Miller brought in that we have a permission slip right here from Boise State saying, all right, with regard to West Jefferson School District, that's installing the blue field turf. We would be able to grant your school a granted perpetual license on the following terms. And so they have that right there. So this is to let them know that that as long as we don't name it certain things to be close to that, they would be able to grant it. So I will read through this with the board, but it looks like we are really close to being able to have permission and moving forward with them. And so with the renderings, we've discussed, do we want to put it up to a vote? We're not. This is something that our football team has wanted. The school board members that were here are in favor of that. Is this going to be the final rendering? Maybe, maybe not. We might make a few more tweaks on it, but this is something that we would like to do going forward. Unless, of course, the board has had an overwhelming amount of opinions one way or another. I know that is probably, I've heard of two different people that have expressed that they prefer the green over the blue. One of the arguments was about the ducks dying on the field, which we know is a myth. I could see also another one would be with the fading of the turf. The actual, just to speak on that, the actual turf itself does not fade over time. Now, I could see that maybe the black pellets over time might show differently on a lighter colored field. And even on the white lettering, that might be something that we could look at. But as we are purchasing a higher end field than we did the first time around here at West Jefferson and having a better maintenance program in place, we should be able to get at very least 20 years out of this field. It does have they said lifetime warranty on the type of field that we're buying. That's because it's seamless, there aren't rips. But we know about 20 years is what it's going to be. We got 18 years out of the same type of field, but it was the lower quality and it wasn't maintained properly until year number 9 of that. So that's just speaking on that. I think this is a great investment. I'm excited about it. I know there's a lot of excitement that the kids are having on this, and it will be really exciting for our community. So I did ask the question, but then I kept talking. I don't know if anybody else, because I spoke on the two things that I knew. One was, are ducks gonna die and is it gonna fade? And what we're being told from the company, no, and from Boise State, it's false. Unless you're an Oregon duck and then you die every time. I don't know.
I did have a patron reach out to me with those same concerns and we discussed those same things. And then one that just texted and said they preferred the green. Didn't give me a reason, so I asked him to expand on that, but our coaches were in favor of the blue. No, I feel better after hearing Boise State say that is a myth about the ducks or the birds, that they don't dive bombing thinking it's water, but
So that's all. Any other comments on? Anybody as you've had a chance to think about it?
Just good comments,
Good comments,
good comments.
even with the blue color?
Yeah.
Okay. So the rest of the information out here is just the same information the board asked before, so it's clear on what the bids were, where they're coming in, and all of the other information about the funding sources coming from plant facility and also from donations as well.
Where did you say the safety pad is coming?
So the safety pad, like as part of it's gonna come from the bond, a part of it will come from plant facility.
The safety part comes from the bond.
Yeah.
the timeline.
Timeline on this, right now, once we have our final rendering into the mill, for them to sew it all together. They do want to try, this might be happening as soon as school is out. So, right in June.
Okay.
Once they get started. No more than 5 weeks, I think, for the football field, if not sooner, where it'd be removal, relasering the current base, and then bringing everything else and putting it in
When does football practice start?
August.
Not till August, it'd be done by then.
That's the plan, that's the plan for us.
Okay. All right, moving on to the school calendar.
Okay, I have the drafts that I put up last time. I went in and looked at some activities and different things that take place in the school. And I should have printed this one off. Julie, I think I had one in on my desk. If you wouldn't mind going and making a quick copy so the board members be able to look at that. Hoping it was on your desk. Yeah, so this one should say draft. I have not changed anything with the starting and ending dates or anything in between. But we did consider some of the things that were brought up last time. So the first one that I'll speak on is the end of the semester. Having it that first week of January directly after a 2-week break. Some teachers, it really depends on the type of class, and I've heard both sides. I've heard some people say it was not a big deal. I heard others say that they wished it could be different, and so it was kind of mixed between all the different teachers. We have 2 different types of classes going on. We have our core classes that are taught all semester, all year. And so depending on the year you are in high school, or in junior high, you have the core 4 core classes that you're taught all year anyway. Some teachers chose to give their final before Christmas if they were a semester-long class, and then they just started teaching a new unit when they came back. Others utilized it where they came back and they restudied items for the first 2 or 3 days before taking their final for the quarter or semester. The issue that I found with moving the end of the semester before December comes down to your quarter classes, which would be your quarter electives more than likely, have less hours. They still would barely meet the minimum for credit hours required by the state, because you have to have 60 credit hours. I think I'm saying that correctly. That would be, since it's a quarter, it'd be 30 hours would still meet it. So it could work, but it just takes it and just offsets the balance of how many days are in a semester when the breaks are. My recommendation would be to leave it, just because it wasn't really consistent with, if more people were saying, if I had heard from all of the different teachers, yeah, this was the worst thing ever, I think it would be worth changing. Right now, I think you're gonna have a pro and a con either way on it. So the other thing that I looked at was the Fridays last year, and I wish I should have, I might be able to still pull up last year's, but if you remember on last year's calendar, I had 2 Fridays in September that we went to school on. And so we actually ended up changing one of those after we started school. If you remember, we moved one of those to on October. So I met with our A team, which goes over all of our athletics, and I found out that we have 2 home football games on the 12th and on the 10th. And if I made those high school only early out, because when I look at the total hours, we're only slim on the hours when it comes to 9th grade through 11th grade. Everybody else has sufficient hours. And so my thought would be that this would be a work day for your K through 8, But your high school 9 through 12 would come with an early out at 2:30, allowing them to, like, for example, the booster club could then have different activities and games or something that they wanted to with the community without us having to cancel school. So we're just upfront putting that way. Another option would be that Friday of Labor Day, of Labor Day week would be a no school day. And here's my thought process behind that. That's the week of the Blackfoot, Eastern Idaho Fair. Your FFA and your FCCLA all go down to the fair, which takes about, I'd say approximately 60 kids down by the time you get that down there. 60 kids out of a school of 200. Now, you still could have a school day, but instructionally, you're not gonna be having your classes go in. So it would be better for us to have no school that day, allow those clubs to still go down on that Friday. And it should help us be able to push instructional days to be more meaningful on that. And then tutoring would be the last Friday before the break. Now, if you look at, one of the things that came up with this year on comments was help us out on what's happening with parent-teacher conference. Our calendar wasn't super clear, and so there was some confusion with that. If you look through, the 19th says K-12 tutoring. Tutoring will also be 8 to 10. October would have K-12 tutoring. November, high school tutoring and professional. And so it's clear cut from the beginning that parent-teacher conference will be there for K through 8. So the question comes, what about high school if we want to have parent-teacher conference? I want parent-teacher conference when it in the high school. We don't have a lot of parents that attend. But we still want parents that they want to have a meeting, are always welcome to set up a meeting with teachers on any of the blue days. Any of the blue or orange days, if they want to. So really you have access to a teacher 2 to 3, either once a month or twice a month, if you really wanted to, as a high school parent, to go and set those meetings. I am encouraging our administration to let our teachers know that they can also reach out to parents and set up meetings without having to wait for a parent-teacher conference, especially since 9 through 12 doesn't have a scheduled parent-teacher conference. But it will just be as needed or as requested by either side, by the parent or by the teacher. And that's just something that we have to keep reminding our teachers about going forward. That's the biggest change. Those really September and October are the biggest change. And also a staggered start between high school, K through 8, and preschool. And you can see that on August. The other thing that's different is last year I had 2 flex work days for teachers that could just schedule with administrators on when they come in to complete their contract days. I went ahead and just put those back in, and that would be November 23rd and April 3rd, just for work days and professional development, just so I have every single day scheduled for all those employees.
November 23rd, is that what you said?
No, sorry, January 23rd, January 23rd and April 3rd.
Okay.
The parent-teacher conference would be during the 3rd quarter, where we'd have high school tutoring on the 13th and K through 8 parent-teacher conference. That would be before the spring break. So this again is another draft. I think I had one just to report to the board. I did get one suggestion indicate from a patron who shared a letter with me about long school days. I think that's a fair argument. It is a long school day, but I don't think we have any other options with a 4-day school week without going 2 additional weeks. I know that I believe Teton School District has a shorter day on a 4-day school week, but I do know they go like I think it's at least 2 weeks into June.
They have spud harvest.
No.
That makes all the difference.
Yeah, the no spud harvest and going longer. So they they start in September, they go short 4-day school week, but they do also go 2 weeks into June. And with harvest and the length of the Christmas break. Like I've got it, the day is exactly long enough to give us enough snow days. I know some people wish that I could use a few more. I get that. But snow days are not, they're insurance days. Like your insurance doesn't send you back a check every time if you don't crash your car.
Be nice.
No, and so we don't get to cash in on those extra days and just take the last 2 days of school off because we didn't use these snow days. So, other thoughts like with this, or yeah, I can switch it. I can get a couple of different options. I think on the next board meeting at the beginning of March. I haven't heard of anything from the legislative session that's talking about instructional hours or calendars or anything like we had last year.
Mhm.
And so I feel comfortable presenting.
Weren't they thinking of increasing those?
They didn't say.
Oh,
It was connected to the facilities funding in 521.
yeah,
And
Couldn't they
and
pass
then
that?
and they passed it, but then they came back and said, when the state board ruled on it, they said you either have to have this many days or this many hours. And we already have, we're still exceeding the hours even with our 4-day schedule.
so before we can approve this, we kind of know what they're going to do.
That's why I'm kind of waiting.
Yeah.
And if I don't hear anything from my superintendent meetings, any rumblings on calendars, I think I could put this on the agenda for the board to
Maybe next month.
approve next month. That's what I'm looking at.
All right, sounds good. All right, next, policy review. You can hear the newest Rigby edition on the feedback.
I know in our special meeting, we discussed a couple of policies, but I can't remember.
It was those four.
It was,
The homeless and this one of them homeless.
yeah,
And one on,
students' rights at 18, homeless, education. And we all have those, but I think
And move those to a first
I-
reading.
next time, because we don't have them put out, so that was still just kind of a.
she wanted to put them in another form. Or
Yeah, so we'll get those in the other form, but was there any other thoughts from the special meeting until now that anybody wanted to bring up or discuss?
Do we have any need for a special or board meeting? Our next regular meeting. March.
March 12th?
Upcoming events, we have the play, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, you can get your tickets now.
we're gonna do it that way.
I don't think so.
They're not.
You're just gonna have Jim drive you.
It's hard.
They have 2 casts, so you have to come 2 nights,
Yeah, that would suck you in, right?
right?
Them to consider a matinee.
So you do have, boys basketball districts start next week. Boys wrestling district starts next week. Spring sports will start somewhere in between there, but then you're right, the next big one would be the high school drama, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Booster Club donkey basketball,
Fun.
get a team together, so should we get a school board team?
No, not me anyway.
Chris will just decorate your chair.
Yeah.
Put like a donkey head on the
like
front.
Like it. Well, that sounds great.
That, let's get this cold weather out, get some snow, and then it'll all melt. So, I think that's all I have.
Well, thank you. The floor would be open for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes.